a lot of things. If people are really passionate about what you do in the music side, love it. Love to talk to those kind of people.
He's going to be a big, big name. He's worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. But the sound he's getting, to call him a Jerry Ross, you remember the song Sonny?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, Bobby was a dear, dear friend of mine, and we're working on his box set because we lost him last August.
Right.
But Jerry Ross is this producer who he wrote I'm Gonna Make You Love Me, that big song for the Supremes.
Yeah.
He co-wrote it with Kenny Gamble, and just an amazing talent who made superb records. And when I heard Smith's records, there was so much like Jerry's. I'm like, wow, just perfect.
Unique, yeah.
You can just feel it. It comes out of the speakers, and this is different. This is special. And you see that with the performance. The Bruins, Timmy Thomas.
Right. Oh yeah.
Was that special?
They said it was probably the greatest year any goalie has ever had.
Vancouver can't believe they didn't win because they didn't intend to find a brick wall.
Yeah. He stopped everything. I mean, yeah, he gave up a couple, they lost 2-1, whatever, that kind of stuff. But it was spectacular.
It was a team with a brick wall.
Yep.
And that was unbeatable. A team can be unbeatable and can, maybe Vancouver's a little more talented. That's what the radio people
That's what they said, But I had Barry Melrose on. He says, will beats skill. He says, Vancouver, everyone, all the experts said they had more skill. And the Bruins are certainly skilled. They're professionals. But they had the want to. They had the character. They had the teamwork. They had that extra level. When they kick it up in the playoffs, they kicked it up, and Vancouver didn't.
You've got that, again, I'll compliment you, because I didn't like the book, I wouldn't say anything.
No.
But I love what you've done, and you've got the will and the skill, because this is a labor of love.
It was a fun thing. As I'm putting it together, I mean, obviously there's a lot of nights and weekends putting this together, but I said some 10-year-old kid's going to love this book. And some 7-year-old guy remembers Babe Perilli and Gino and Joe Polino and all that kind of stuff. I did a book signing one time in Lake Winnipesaukee. A guy drove 2.5 hours from Maine just to meet with me and talk to me for 15 minutes. Made my day, made his day. He says, man, I never believed that anyone would go back. I mean, when I started putting this together in 94, 95, people were like, why? The Patriots have only had 3 or 4 good years in 35 years. This was before they really took off with Parcells and Bledsoe and put us on the map and Kraft. That's when I started putting this together just because I wanted to. And I figured somebody would enjoy this. And then all of a sudden they, 3 Super Bowl wins and we're a dynasty. And, Brady's still around and Belichick's still around. So I expect at least 1 or 2 more Super Bowl championships. But I had no idea that it was going to turn out the way it turned out. And I had no idea that some publisher would print us 800 pages. I figured I got a 60-page book or 80-page book. But
that was
800 pages blew me away. They said, yeah, we're going to do it. And it's...
My next question, this company in Chicago, Triumph Press, so when did they like the idea?
Well, I sent them 1,400 pages without pictures. I said, all right. They said, what do you got? We heard this thing about what you're doing with Gino and Andre Tippett and stuff and all these stats. And so I said, all right, here it is. And they're like, whoa, 1,400 pages. We can't do 1,400 pages. Let's get rid of this, get rid of this. Let's edit this. Let's add some pictures. And we looked at over 1,000 pictures with the Boston Globe and narrowed them down to 250. There's 198 football cards that are in there. So
I love the football cards. I love them.
There's 450 pictures in there. But
football cards in the book.
Yeah, and that was great.
The bubblegum cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Of Irving Fryer,
I'm sure there's football
John
cards
Smith
and Batman cards and books before, but I'm thinking, what a great idea. I don't really see this. Sure, they're pictures, but they're historic pictures because people paid a nickel to buy these.
Oh, more, yeah.
Back in the day with a piece of nice bubble gum in it.
I mean, my initial title with this book was Relive the Moments. If you went to a game or you watched a game or experienced a game, whether you're at home or you went to the game at Harvard Stadium or Fenway Park like you did or I did, I wanted to bring you back and say, hey, and talk about it. You reminisce about with your uncle or your brother or your sister. And in the process of doing that, we turned into from 1,400 pages, got it down to about 600, added some pictures, and now it's 800 pictures. 800 pages of anything you really want to know, and then some.
Can you imagine a time machine where people can go back and pick games they want to go and sit and watch, almost like a movie, and you go to experience it, and there you are at the ballpark with the sense and just the aura of it all. You kind of do that in book form for them.
If there's a comment about every single game. If something happened, there was a game in the Monday night where a guy jumped out of a hot air balloon at halftime. That comment is in there. So you say, when did that happen? Well, you can find it in there.
And of course, on page number 556, there's the infamous Snow Bowl.
Yeah, Aaron Terry's in there numerous times. That's the greatest play. I ranked the top 10 of everything.
Where are the top 10s?
Depending on what category again, but that's the greatest play in the history of the Patriots. That field goal, the 45. It's probably one of the greatest plays in the history of the NFL. The most clutch, you know. Gino Cappelletti and Gil Santos didn't see it go through the goalposts because it was so snowy. I mean, you got a 45-yard field goal. You got to kick it to force overtime. It's in the snow. It's it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Was it 2 in the morning?
Something right around that time.
I don't remember. Wow.
And they had to wait for the referees to put their arms up to say it was field goal because Adam Vinatieri said it was like 1 in 100 that would happen because we had to hit it just right, not too high, not too low. It had to go just a certain distance, and it's in the snow. And he says, "Man, I nailed it." What
do you say? 1 in a million?
He said probably 1 in 100. I mean,
1 in 100.
1 in 100 probably for him to hit it just right. If he hit it a little bit this, a little bit that, it would have not been far enough. I mean, it just made it over the goalpost. 45-yard field goal in the snow. Pretty impossible. You see guys like there's a comment in there about the Vander Jerk guy from Indianapolis Colts, where he, in the dome against the Patriots, never misses, and he misses. I mean, perfect conditions, and he can't do it.
Yeah, because it's the most pressure.
Yeah.
You can't fault the guy. That's what they paid for, but still.
But still,
Timmy Thomas said that he visualized since last July holding the Stanley Cup. He had his goal, he had his mission, he achieved it.
Exactly.
At 37.
Yeah.
And he's not a young man.
Not at all. And he paid his price. I mean, there's 962 players that are profiled in this book. 47 of them played in one game for the Patriots.
So you know trivia on your own book.
Right.
That's great. How many players are in the book?
There's 962.
I knew that because you just told me that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So there's all kind of stuff. A guy played in one game, it's in there. I mean, there's so many people. They did a reunion of the Boston Patriots. Phil Castanetti, who does a lot of memorabilia and that kind of stuff, he put together, and he had Tommy Addison, who just passed a couple days ago, Nick Bonaconti, and Houston Antwine, and Larry Eisen, and all the guys from back in the day, and they all got together, and I got a chance to interview all these guys. And they came from all over the country. And that was just here I am a fan, and I'm sitting down and I'm talking to some of these guys that were my heroes when I was growing up, And then in the process, I had a chance to meet Teddy Bruschi and Troy Brown, and certainly spend many hours with Gino Cappelletti and Steve Grogan, and Joe Andruzzi. The list goes on and on and on of all these people that I've met. And actually, because of this book, I worked for the NFL for the last 6 years. So I'm at every Patriots home game working for the NFL. So this has branched out to so many different things,
Where you just live up the street, you should probably talk to the guys about having a show here. I think you're great on air.
I'd love to do this.
This is because we need a show like this. My show's off in every different tangent. We have sports.
Yep.
We have film.
Yep.
We're heavy into film, comic books, whatever. And music, of course. Marty Ballin was our very first guest. Marty said, "If you can track me down, Joe, I'll be in Harvard Square buying books." He was in from San Francisco, right? Mill Valley. I called up his father and said, "I'm not going to go hunting for your son in the bookstores. Where is he?" He gives me the hotel. Said, "Thanks, Joe." His name's Joe. Called him to the hotel, did the interview, and now we're 540 or so shows later. 16 years.
I mean, I always loved being on the radio and talking to radio, and John likes to call on the radio stations. I used to call, and I would call in with all my kind of weird facts. And
yeah, but you've got a book, and so you're in Google. You got a drop down.
Yep.
John from Medford is in Google. WEEI. Yeah, it's amazing. John from Medford, WEEI.
Yeah.
It's a Google drop down.
So people up there know me as Bob the Stat Man.
Ah. What about 98.5? The same thing?
Yep.
Because they have different jocks go back and forth, kind of.
Yep. Right. And then the Patriots. We were, one time the Patriots called my house looking for me, and my wife didn't know who it was, and it was Stacey James of the Patriots, and he says, "I'd like to talk to Bob," and my wife says, "Stacey James, I don't recognize that name. I'll have to take your number and have him call you back." So she calls me at work and says, "Stacey James, really? He called me?" I said, "Yeah, he's looking for you." "Okay, it's good." She said, "Just pass him on." She said, "Well, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know if it was a crank call or whatever. I just wanted to protect you." And I said, she did her job, and I called Stacey, and he wanted to look up the coldest games when they were playing against Tennessee. What were the coldest games the Patriots ever played? So I said, all right, here's some of the coldest games that they ever played, you know. But most of the Patriots are looking forward, you know, last year and next year, what's going to happen. They didn't really have the resources to go back to whatever it was, 1963 or 65 or 72 or whatever it was. So I had all the information already. You know?
It's just stunning. It's just, you know, you just get this massive information condensed that you can, but it's just fun to read. Squibbed kickoff recoveries and returns. I wouldn't even think of a category like that.
If it happened in the game once, it's in there. And that's like Dan Connolly, the 73-yard kickoff return last year. You know, I had things in there. Every lineman that's ever returned a kickoff, every linebacker who's ever returned a kickoff. Those kind of weird things that have happened.
Well, kickoffs that were returned for a TD, that you want to know. That's the first thing on my mind. But recoveries of an onside kick, that's a really, you know, unique category. And boy, you do want to know that one too.